Beneath the ice of Antarctica, something ancient has opened its eye. Not a myth, not a fossil. A living force that remembers a world before ours. When two massive beings rise from the glacier in the sea, scientists must decide whether to study them, fear them, or finally listen. Because some memories are not buried. They are waiting. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video and tell us, where are you watching from now? Let's jump into the story. Dr. Marlin Keats had spent 40 years studying the quiet language of ice. He knew how to read the slow cracks. He could sense when a glacier was breathing or breaking. But what he found near the Harrow ice field made no sense. It began with a strange thermal spike. A small satellite scan showed a warm spot deep under the oldest part of the glacier. Temperatures in Antarctica were cold and steady. Nothing under the ice should be generating heat. Marlin blinked at the screen. The data flashed again. Heat, stable, constant. He leaned closer. This is not geothermal, he whispered. This is alive. He sent the report to Dr. Lina Ruth, his glacial analyst and trusted colleague. Lina was young but sharp. She knew how to map movement in the ice like a painter reads brushstrokes. When she arrived at Polar Station Oren, she said only one thing. The heat signature is pulsing. Marlin looked at her. Like a heartbeat? She nodded. Exactly like a heartbeat. The two scientists ran the numbers again. Depth, mass, and shape. The object buried in the glacier was massive. Easily over 200 meters long. Lina frowned. There's something else. Seismic readings around it show movement. Marlin felt a cold chill that had nothing to do with the weather. It's not just alive. It's waking up. They contacted Commander Huldrych Vey, head of logistics at the station. He reviewed the data with a grim expression. No one else sees this report until we know more, Vey said. We're activating Protocol Dark Freeze. Within hours, the team deployed a drone to scan the area above the anomaly. The drone flew into the icy winds, recording every crevice and crack. For the first hour, everything looked normal. Then the camera caught something strange. A shadow under the ice, large, slowly shifting. Marlin leaned closer to the monitor. Stop the feed. Go back. Zoom in. The image sharpened. An eye closed, sealed under crystal clear ice. Then, slowly, it opened. Before anyone could speak. The drone's feed went black. Naomi Trell, the youngest member of the team and communications officer, broke the silence. The drone didn't crash. It was cut off. Lina asked. Cut off? By what? Naomi shook her head. Not a signal block. Not interference. It was something else. The ice near Harrow began to shift. Small tremors rippled across the surface. The pattern wasn't random. It moved in waves. Marlin watched the data stream. He spoke slowly. It's communicating. Commander Vey gave the order to launch a secondary ground team. They would take snowmobiles and core drilling gear to the edge of the anomaly. They would collect samples and record audio. Before they left, Lina looked at Marlin. What do you think it is? He answered without looking away from the map. Something old. Something we were never meant to find. The team reached the glacier's surface by nightfall. Above them, the stars blinked in the clear polar sky. The ice groaned beneath their boots. Nika felt. The lead thermal engineer drilled the first core. Steam hissed as the drill passed through layers of compressed frost. She pulled the sample out. What she saw made her freeze. The ice was warm, not just near the center. All the way through. This ice isn't melting, she said. It's absorbing heat. Naomi set up the audio equipment and began recording. What they heard later sent chills through the entire team. Beneath the glacier, There was a sound, not a crack, not pressure. A voice, slow, rhythmic, like something breathing. They called Marlin back at the station. He listened to the recording. Once, then twice. He didn't speak. Finally, he said, "It's not alone." He overlaid the current heat map with an old one from 20 years ago. The old map showed nothing. Now there were two signatures. One large, one moving. Linna gasped. We didn't wake it up. We triggered a signal. In the distance, ice split. A sharp crack echoed across the valley. A long ridge of glacier shifted. Something under the surface moved upward. Slow but steady. The expedition team backed away. Naomi turned her camera toward the ridge. Something massive pushed against the ice from below. Then it stopped. Completely still. As silence returned, a fine mist drifted into the air. The frost on the ground began to melt in a perfect circle around the anomaly. Marlin stood by the radio. His voice was quiet. Send the signal to the United Science Division. Encrypted channel, Priority Alpha. Commander Vey asked, "What? Should we tell them?" Marlin answered with a single line. Antarctica just blinked. The wind over Harrowridge had changed. It no longer howled through the glacier. Now it pulsed. Like a slow exhale from something deep under the ice. Dr. Marlin Keats stood near the edge of the anomaly, listening. The air felt warmer than it should. Not by much, but enough for a man who had spent his life studying cold. Beside him, Dr. Lina Ruth was running fresh scans. Her gloved hands moved quickly across her tablet. The heat signature beneath the ice had grown, not randomly. It was expanding. In a circular pattern. It's not a heat leak, Lina said. It's a body, and it's breathing deeper now. Annika Felt arrived with her team of engineers. They brought heavier drilling gear and reinforced thermals. She looked over the ridge and frowned. This entire shelf is unstable. We're standing on something that wants to move. Marlin nodded, and we move faster. Naomi Trell set up new audio sensors. The ones from last night had picked up a rhythm. Not just air and pressure. There had been a sequence. Like language. Commander Huldrych Vey paced near the snowmobiles. His radio buzzed. A second research vessel had entered the region, unregistered, traveling fast. Marlin asked, "Any idea who they are?" Vey replied, "They won't say. But they're heading for the same coordinates." Lina stepped between them. "We're not the only ones who know it's waking up." Dr. Tovin Kress arrived by helicopter just after sunset. He was tall and thin, with silver hair and a face that looked like it had seen too many secrets. An expert in ancient biology and deep-sea organisms, he had studied fossils older than bones. When he saw the scans, he said one word, "Reptilian." Marlin turned toward him. "You think it's a dinosaur?" Tovin shook his head. "Not a dinosaur. Something older. Something that doesn't match anything we've seen in the fossil record." Annika drilled the first deep core sample from the anomaly. When the extractor came back up, steam followed. And something else. Tissue. Warm. Soft. Still. Alive. "This isn't just thawing ice," she said. "It's recovering." Lina looked closely at the sample. It shimmered slightly. "Like scales. This is not natural evolution," she whispered. "This is something designed to last forever." Naomi's radio crackled. A voice came through. "This is Captain Jur Talvik. We are approaching Sector 37, requesting clearance." Commander Vey frowned. "You are not cleared to enter this zone." The reply came calmly. "You don't own the truth. Some things buried should not stay buried. We're here to observe." Marlin looked at Lina. They knew exactly where to go. As the team prepared for nightfall, the ground trembled. Not a quake. A low, steady vibration. Fib BLE, a small remote rover, picked it up clearly. It reported a steady pulse every 8 seconds. Matching the earlier sound recordings, LINNA layered the sound over the heat map. She traced the vibrations outward. "It's communicating," she said. "Not just with us. With something else." Tovin stepped closer. "You mean another one?" Naomi pointed at her new readings. A second heat signature had appeared. Smaller, moving from beneath the frozen bay. First creature was no longer alone. ANIK backed away from the drill. "We need to shut everything down. This is getting out of control." Marlin didn't move. He stared at the map. "We can't shut it down. Not now. This is history trying to surface." As the night deepened, strange lights appeared beneath. The ice, soft blue glows, pulsing like underwater lanterns. The team watched from the ridge in silence. Suddenly, the ice near the original anomaly cracked. A sharp line stretched outward. Then another dot. The ground shuddered. And from within the glacier, a sound echoed that none of them could explain. Not a growl, not a roar. A tone, deep and ancient. Tavan whispered, "It's a call." Naomi watched. The sky, auroras began to form, but not the normal kind. These glowed in shapes, curved patterns that moved with rhythm. LINNA took pictures, then froze. These symbols match ancient cave markings in multiple continents: Siberia, Greenland, northern India. Marlin asked, "How can that be?" Tovin stepped forward. "Because it's older than the continents themselves. It was here before we were." The team backed away slowly as the glacier shifted again. A ridge of ice lifted slightly. Beneath it, something moved. Eyes, glowing amber, watching, not in anger, but awareness. Marlin whispered, "It sees us." The breathing grew louder. Snow lifted into the air with each exhale. The cold seemed to fade slightly. The creature was waking, and it was not alone. The ice cracked before the sun touched the horizon. Not loud, not sudden. Just enough to wake the camp with a sound that didn't belong to nature. Dr. Marlin Keats was already up. He stood outside the tent, staring at the glacier. He had seen avalanches. He had seen calving events. This was different. This was controlled. LINNA. Ruth joined him, wrapping her coat tight against the wind. She held a fresh thermal scan in her hand. "The main mass is fully active now," she said. "Whatever it is, it's no longer asleep." Marlin nodded slowly. "And it's watching." The creature beneath the glacier had opened one eye the day before. Since then, its heat signature had remained constant, steady, focused, as if it knew where they were. Naomi Trell reviewed the latest drone footage. Her fingers trembled slightly as she paused the feed. "Look here," she said. "The pupil is tracking. It follows the drone. It reacts to sound." Annika Felt leaned over to see. "It's aware of us." Commander Vey called for a temporary halt on all surface activity. No more drilling, no loud engines, no more flying drones. "We don't know how it will respond if it feels threatened," he said. "Down by the ridge, Doctor." Tovin Kress examined a sample of scale tissue recovered from a melt pocket. The patterns in the material were strange. Each cell reflected light in exact rhythm with the ice vibrations. "This thing isn't just alive," Tovin said. "It's synchronized with the glacier itself." Lena stared at the ice wall. A web of glowing lines had begun forming across it. They looked like cracks at first, but then they started to shift. They pulsed with faint blue light. "These are symbols," she said. "Not random. They match carvings found in Petra and southern Mongolia." Marlin stepped closer. "How can markings under Antarctica match sites half a world away?" Tovin spoke softly. "Because it has always been here, and it has always remembered." As the team gathered around the scan terminal, a low hum filled the air. It came from the glacier, a tone too low to be human, but deep enough to vibrate through the chest. Naomi whispered, "It's speaking again." Marlin turned to Vey. "We need to respond, not with force, not with science. With respect." Annika disagreed. "It could be a threat." "We don't know what it wants." Marlin nodded. "But it hasn't attacked. It hasn't moved aggressively. It's only watched, listened, waited." The camp fell quiet. Everyone watched the glacier, watched the eye. A small avalanche broke loose near the east slope. A section of the ice wall collapsed. Beneath it, a massive horned crest emerged. Jagged, armored, marked by time. The full shape of the head became clear. Long, powerful, covered in thick, scaled ridges. But the eye stayed locked on them. Steady. Still. Linna stepped forward with her translator tablet. She activated a low-frequency tone based on the recorded vibrations. A single pulse, then another. The glacier responded. The glowing lines shifted again, forming new shapes, curves, spirals. Van gasped. "It's writing back." On the screen, the translation software began picking up fragments. Words formed. Not perfect, but enough. Guardian, wait, return, awaken. Marlin, read the words aloud. "It's been here for a reason." A message came through on the camp radio. Captain Jur Talvik's vessel was arriving at the nearby bay. His voice was clear and calm. "We see movement from our side. Something large under the water. It's surfacing." Linna's face went pale. "There's another one." Naomi checked the sonar data. Yes, same mass. Smaller, but faster. "It's coming straight toward the glacier." Commander Vey shouted orders. Teams were pulled back. Equipment secured. But Marlin stayed still. He watched the glacier. He watched the eye. And then something unexpected happened. The eye blinked, slow and deliberate, as if confirming. As if answering a question never asked aloud. The second creature breached from the frozen bay with a wave of icy water. Its head was sleeker, less armored, but just as large. It moved toward the glacier, then stopped, facing the first. Not in challenge, but in recognition. The two beings locked eyes across the ice. Linna said what everyone was thinking. "They know each other." Tovin added, "They're not monsters. They're something older. Something sacred." Marlin looked toward the mountain. The aurora overhead had shifted again, now forming lines. Ancient shapes that mirrored those glowing on the glacier. "They are the memory," Marlin said, "of a world we forgot." As the two creatures held their positions, the glacier stopped cracking. The air grew calm. The vibration faded. But the eye never closed. The cold winds of Antarctica had quieted. For the first time in weeks, the ice had stopped shifting. No more cracking. No more trembling. Just silence. But it was not empty. It was full. Like the pause before a great truth is spoken. Dr. Marlin Keats stood at the edge of the ridge. Below him, two massive creatures faced each other. One rose from the glacier. The other had emerged from the frozen bay. They did not fight. They did not move. They simply watched. The camp behind Marlin was silent too. No one spoke. No one dared interrupt whatever this moment was. Dr. Linna Ruth stared at the ancient markings now glowing across the ice. They were changing again. The symbols pulsed in slow waves, as if syncing with the creature's breath. Tovin Kress had a translation tablet in his hands. It struggled to process the ancient patterns. But the message was forming. It read, "We are the memory. We are the guardians. We waited for the signal. You have awakened the story." Naomi Trell looked up from her audio console. "The sound stopped," she said. "They're not speaking anymore. They're listening." Annika Felt stepped forward. "Listening for what?" Marlin answered softly. "For us." Commander Haldrick Vey looked uncertain. We don't have a message to send. We do, said Lina. She walked toward the ridge holding a small metal case. Inside was a core sample, a single piece of ice, pulled from deep within the glacier. It had been kept cold and untouched. She placed the sample gently on the snow. This ice has been here for thousands of years, she said. It contains particles from ancient fires, ancient rain, and ancient life. Tovin added, and now it holds our voice. The creatures moved for the first time. Not much, just a shift in posture. Their eyes focused on the sample. The air temperature dropped slightly. Mist formed around the case. Then it began to glow. A soft, blue light pulsed from within the ice. The markings on the glacier responded. The light spread upward. Symbols appeared across the face of the ridge. The translation tablet picked up new words. Memory accepted. Timeline joined. Harmony restored. Marlin stepped forward. They were waiting for proof that we remember. Not just facts, not just science, but the feeling, the story, the connection to what came before. Naomi watched as the two creatures lowered their heads slightly. A sign of peace, a sign of understanding. They trust us now, she whispered. Then something remarkable happened. The glacier stopped glowing. The symbols faded slowly, like the final note of a long song. And the ice began to refreeze. The creature in the bay turned first. Its long body moved through the water with silent grace. It vanished beneath the surface. Gone without a ripple, the other creature, the one with the golden eye, looked toward the ridge one last time. Then it lowered itself back into the glacier. Ice closed around it slowly, not like before, not forced, but gentle. As if it had chosen to sleep again. Knowing it had been heard, within minutes, the glacier was still. The warmth was gone. The air was quiet. Lina stared at the ice. Will they come back? Marlin replied, only if we forget again. Back at the station, the team gathered inside the main lab. They reviewed recordings, data, and satellite footage. Nothing showed aggression. No signs of danger. Only communication. Only memory. Anik leaned against the wall. So what do we do now? Tovin answered without hesitation. We tell the story. Commander Vey nodded. Not as a warning. Not as a mystery. But as a message. Naomi looked at the team. And we name them, not as beasts, not as threats, but as guardians. The final report, sent to the United Science Division, was short. It read, contact confirmed, intelligence verified, interaction peaceful, guardians of memory identified. Months later, no other signals were found. No more heat under the ice. No more movement. But at Polar Station Orion, the team had changed. They had seen something no one else had. Not just creatures. Not just ancient life. But a truth too big to measure. On quiet nights, Marlin still walked to the edge of the ridge. He looked out over the glacier, not with fear, not with questions, but with respect, because some eyes never truly close, and some stories never truly end.